working these issues over 30 years for the most part, just like the San Luis Rey experience, we're able to, as parties on the ground, to figure out what we need to do. And the one thing we all figure out is the big problem here is the federal government. And so we've got a common enemy, and that's really what's brought the tribes and the states together in these discussions over the years, and that's still our problem. It'd probably be worthwhile to get everybody together, as Dick's outlined here, and talk about that, see if there isn't something that we could come up with that would advance the ball.
Hilo, you want to comment? I know you're for Coeur d'Alene, and you're kind of getting deep into the water stuff as well in many ways, but do you have any thoughts about what you think some of the needs are in that area, what you'd like to see happen or learn from?
Yeah, we have an interesting situation right now. I mean, the more contentious areas, we live in Idaho. I think Ernie called it the redneck state, like one of the most Republican states in the country. And it's always been kind of a cowboys and Indians state. We've tried hard to change that, and I think one of the visions of Ernie, and I think one of the things that Chairman Allen has done is focused a lot on relationships with the local governments and with the state legislature and the governor. And over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, we've seen, I think, the acceptance of tribal issues at the state level change somewhat. And I think some of our focus from how to get things done in our state has changed from how to do it through Congress and maybe federally to doing it at the state level. And a couple recent maybe things that have been positive, I guess, in that direction. Last year in the Idaho legislature, we passed a bill that exempted fee land that tribes own within their reservations from property taxes. As you guys can recall, we all know the Yakima decision and what that meant for a lot of tribes that own property within their reservations that they were forced to buy back. And it passed with 97% of the legislature supporting it. And part of that was explaining the economic impact the tribes have. We're the largest employer in our region. The amount of money that gets fueled into taxing districts through education donations and any number of programs, but educating the politicians on that has been a big part of that. And last week, the governor signed a bill that we passed in the legislature this year that provided and codified in the Idaho Code an exemption for income taxes earned by tribal members working for another tribe's reservation. And some states have interpreted the McClanahan decision very narrowly, just to say that you have to be living and working on your own tribe's reservation for the income tax exemption to apply. We codified that exemption for all tribal members and just signed into law last week. So I'm not trying to say that everything is all well and good in Idaho, because it's certainly not. We have our challenges. We have our challenges with counties. We've had our battles over the years, but water rights in Idaho, like it is in many states, really brings out kind of the worst in everybody. I think certainly in a kind of agricultural area like Idaho, and in our neck of the woods, we live in northern Idaho. It's generally speaking, water is in abundance. Nobody fights over water up there. For the most part, there's a ton of rain. There's just not really an issue. And Idaho is wanting to adjudicate the water rights in that area, which is forcing people to have to come to court and forcing them into defining what your water rights are. And so in a way, with kind of knives to everyone's backs, they're getting pushed out on the plank on what this is going to mean. We have a bill right now in the legislature that we're working on to encourage the state to negotiate these water rights claims with the tribe. And we're seeing some of that, you know, the kind of the redneck and the sort of agricultural folks, which dominate our legislature in most part, really not comfortable with that as it pertains to water rights. And so we'll see how we do. I like our chances of getting something like that done, but ultimately, I think our relationship with the state has helped. For the most part, we've worked out agreements on fuel taxes and different things in the past, and we're hoping that can carry into our water rights issues, but there's no certainty in that, and we'll kind of see how it goes. But we're interested to learn from what other folks have experienced, because it sounds like there's a lot of similarities, but hopefully we can avoid some of the same challenges.
Thank you, Hilo. Yeah, he did what I hoped he would do, and that's obviously they shifted their focus a little bit toward trying to work with the state to work out the difference. How can you kind of like coexist, so to speak? And Coeur d'Alene is a beautiful reservation, like a lot of reservations, with Coeur d'Alene Lake and everything. And part of that lake is within their boundaries. And as he points out, I mean, the whole thing about quantification kind of growing out of the Southwest, Arizona in particular, you know, PIE standard. You know, I think in the Northwest, Warm Springs, I mean, in Oregon, which is a huge reservation, half high desert area, half timber, and they had to deal with quantifying and using the PI standard for the ag portion of the reservation. And they also have a deregulating dam, so they were in their power business. But there's some fantastic kind of examples out there that people can really kind of learn from. I know the Pacific Islanders have come just to observe and everything, but I was thinking that ever since I saw that meeting agenda up in Anchorage, with all those environmentalists and whoever, you know, they were there, and I started thinking about, you know, what was happening with Alaska, subsistence issues, certainly in the Northwest, you know, with the fishing issues, and even Alaska with climate change concerns. I mean, they experience it first, or I shouldn't say first, but more so than others. And there's just a lot of common, you know, threads, and in a focused way, you could kind of bring people together to learn from each other. And even comments that Willie Littlechild made about Canada and what they're going through, and it's all the same. It's dealing with different governments, you know, I guess different strategies, or maybe different amount of activism. And I know it's, you know, it's darn challenging for tribal leaders with all the things in play. It's pretty hard to just isolate on one thing and maybe not give enough time to all the other things. But Ed, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Dick. You know, in listening, like Mark mentioned here about listening to the good discussions we had over different topics, I think we have to try to take those words with us and really do something that, you know, we can say that is a direct result of a meeting like this, and set up a meeting that could be somewhere in the near future. The 2 or 3 topics that really concern me, or basically maybe it's all these things that we talked about. We're talking about the further diminishment of our sovereignty and our rights. And one issue that I keep coming back to is not only our youth, but in some cases, even our current councils don't know what our struggles were. They don't know how hard it was to get where we are today. It was too hard for my grandfather, and for my brother Guy, and for Billy Frank and Joe Dela Cruz, and all those leaders that fought and made progress for us to just roll over and let us be rolled, because we are not together. We are making decisions that put ourselves at risk in the United States Supreme Court and every other court. Our advice, way back when, because I haven't been a tribal leader, I was an observer when the shift in the Supreme Court was happening. When they started telling us, Joe Dela Cruz, stay out of court, work out your differences. It's not a good place to be. And these, when I look at the paper that talks about the different court cases, outcomes, potential outcomes, and what's at risk, it scares the hell out of me. So we have to, I'm trying to figure out a way to take the words with us and apply them and make an effort. Now Billy's been, I don't know if it's the full circle for Billy. You know, we're back in 1952 when Billy met Martin Luther King Jr. in Seattle. We think we need to get loud and proud again. But I use a recent example, and the Californians can correct me if I'm misinterpreting it, but I've been involved in the California current, the Washington, Oregon, and California, when they looked at this big ecosystem out there in the ocean. And we were doing some things in Washington State that are the precursors to the President's National Ocean Policy through this 3 governors forum. And we did our work and we went to the meetings and some things were passed. But we looked at California, and the state of California was ignoring the tribes in California. And they had like a near-shore planning process that they were refusing to let the tribes in at the table, zoning or something like that. And they were not recognizing them on this board, or they had 1 seat on that advisory board. But so the California tribes got together in Fort Bragg and they protested. And it was just like the 60s and the 70s again. It made the national news. And it was repetitive. And my understanding is the state of California found a way to bring them to the table to be involved in those near-shore planning processes. You know, they're unlike us who have treaty rights adjudicated into the ocean that brings us a seat at the table automatically. So that's direct action. That's what Billy's been talking to us about lately. We may have to go to direct action. We may have to be protesting. We need to have our strategies laid out, our subject well thought out, and we need to give the general public the reason why they can stand behind us. We have to empower them to support us. And we can do that. We've done it in the past and we can do it again. They often ask us in different meetings in different places, including our senators and congressmen, what is it you need? And sometimes they ask us to write it down for them. We'll write it down for them if we have to. But the story is that we're here, we aren't going anywhere. And oh, by the way, somewhere near Coeur d'Alene, we are the largest employer in your county or your district. And in Western Washington, the most depressed county in Washington State, Grace Harbor, the highest unemployment rate still today of almost 9%. The Quinault Indian Nation is the largest employer in the county, pouring millions of dollars into that county that all they did was take from us, and now we're helping it survive. We must have a $15 to $18 million payroll that they say rolls over, 6 or 7 times in your community. We have to empower them to make a good decision to walk with us, like we walked with Martin Luther King Jr., like we walked with El Centro de la Raga in Seattle, the Mexicans, the Hispanics, the coalitions we once built against 4, 5, 6, get rid of the Indians after the Boldt decision, the churches, the Daughters of the American Revolution, all these people that got behind us and helped us prevail. Be tribal leaders. I became one because I sat at the meetings like Mark talks about, but I sat there for 30 years. And when they called on me, I answered. And they're still calling on me. So I can't have nothing less than to keep the fight going and move forward with great people that I'm sitting around with today. John Eckelhoff, who I respect tremendously, was able to meet somebody like Killer George in my travels, and honored to be around him and watch his leadership. Billy Frank, my hero. So we owe it to our people to wake them up, walk with our ancestors, and talk the talk and fight the fight. Think tank, incubator, whatever you want to call it, we owe it to our people. And Dick Trudeau for helping us move down the road, organize us, get off the couch and put down the button. Let's start a movement, because I see it in my own people, and it breaks my heart that our young tribal leaders are putting in jeopardy the work that my grandfather did in the 20s and 30s on the Quinault Council, that my brother Guy, my auntie Marion, all of them. No longer here. Walk with our ancestors.
Thank you, Ed. There is a meeting going on tomorrow with the Pacific Islanders, America's Samoa, Guam, Mariana Islands, Hawaii, the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commissions, and hopefully you guys will even come out of that meeting with an idea to band people together and get some real focus. And obviously Alaska made it a lot to do. I will, the water stuff, reach out to a lot of you to say if it's gonna happen. It's not a one-man show, and there's just a lot of work that goes into it. And certainly don't want to spend, a lot of time just kind of reflecting on the past. It's really how to move forward. And so, I've always believed in meetings as being a platform. If you can pull people together the right way and everything, then maybe it can lead to something. But if you don't have that gathering anymore, it's got to be focused, because there's just too much going on. And I realize your time is valuable as tribal leaders, and when you end up having to go to another meeting, you want it to be productive. But how do we kind of benefit from each other? But I hope, Billy, and the people from the Pacific Islanders, you kick some ideas around. And I only mention next year because we'll start a new Congress, end of the year after the election, they'll reorganize, you know, in December, sort out who chairs whatever, and it'll take them a number of days to get, months, you know, to get oriented. And unfortunately, we'll be deep into the presidential election, you know, so the politics just kind of drive everything anymore in terms of getting any kind of meaningful attention. You know, so the other, one comment, one takeaway for me as well, I mean, two things. I mean, certainly work on the water issues, to try to pull people together, and I may call on some of the Southern California people to maybe hold it down there, you know, San Diego area, whatever, some meeting and draw the whole country and get some feedback, you know, how much do you draw from the feds, and how do you get to the Bureau of Reclamation and Interior and all the others want to come on out and speak in front of us, and be prepared to respond to things that you may not want to hear. That has happened before in our meetings, where I've always believed you bring as many people to the table, even the people you can't stand, as far as their position, get it on the table, you know, because a lot of them don't understand. And obviously dealing with the political appointees, where they're just for a short time and they're gone, and we deal with the next person that comes along. And so in this instance, with Sally Jewell, we'll do the best we can, and before you know it, she'll be gone. You know, and so there's a lot to kind of kick around, but I think if we're a little better organized, I think we can have the impact that we deserve. And the other takeaway for me is I mentioned we do this in the law reporter, and I want to try to move that into being just online, because there's just so much going on, and it's a costly venture to do those things. I mean, in the legal profession, you know, and everything anymore is on the internet. You know, they don't go to hard copy anymore. These cases come down, you know, from multiple levels. You got to have the people that are able to take and package it, digest it, package it, and make it available. Because in the legal profession, with Westlaw and some of the other entities, it's very expensive. That's what the lawyers rely on, and that's what you people pay for. And sometimes you pay way too much for. We were approached by Westlaw at one point in time. They wanted to take on what we were doing. For them, it's a profit thing. And at the time, I was thinking, wow, geez, all we're trying to do is get the information out. Here we are 40 years later, we still got it out. But it's really a generational thing for me, because it's all about technology. And the younger people who like to do that stuff, but you need the writers, you need the text, you need the marketing people, and you know, the whole bunch of other facets. And to me, it's got to be run like an enterprise, and someone has to pay for itself. You know, and but that's all new to me in terms of dealing with the high-tech area. But those are the two takeaways that I myself, and I would more than happy to work on this water area, because I think, as some people mentioned, we've had a lot of experiences, and I think there's no sense in just putting it on a shelf and saying, hey, good luck with whatever you're dealing with. Some of that needs to be shared. But also, if it's not what they want, okay, that's fine. You know, you're at your own way, that's good. But I think one is always makes a mistake if you just ignore what's gone before you. Pick out what you want and take it to another level. But I think the demands on the resource are significant, and it takes time to, you know, work its way. But anyway, anybody else that wants to chime in here?
Well, hope that meeting for you.
Well, okay, well, okay, great. Yeah, it won't take long to kind of get something ready. I mean, we even produced a tribal water management handbook from our meetings, and at the very beginning of the desktop publishing stuff. And I was amazed because we did it in 90 days. But I was fortunate to be able to draw from a number of lawyers that I worked closely with, Charles Wilkins and Dave Gibson, whatever. We just turned it around. I loved it. You know, so the point being, it can be done. You know, and it needs to be done quickly, then the reader can be the judge. But there's everything in that little book, from hydrology to, you know, kind of looking backwards in terms of court cases that laid the legal foundation. I mean, you know, on And obviously, you get more pressure from the state legislature. You gotta feed them as well. And sometimes you don't, you get a lot of lip service and they don't do anything. You know, so how do you hold them accountable? So it's really kind of the educational process as well. It's saying, here's our issues, one page. You know, and I'm just not gonna talk to your handler who's raising the money, because some of the people who raise the money, they do it for money. These political fundraisers and stuff, but they shake anybody down. They're not just shaking down for the candidate, but they're shaking down for themselves. But that's the whole different area in terms of politics, and I think Robert Shepard, when he's talking about PACs and stuff, it's a discussion that needs to be ongoing and sorting out how we can do a better job. You know, because there are some tribes who spent a lot of money on political donations and lobbying off the scale. And for some, like California, I mean, they've done a lot of that. But for the congressional delegation in California, you got 53, 54 congressmen. You know, 2 senators is huge. So 12% of the Congress in that state is not harnessed. Because being a resident of California, every time I see the conditions of some of the roads, some of the communities, what the hell are these people doing? You know, in terms of, there shouldn't be the partisan divide between Republicans. I mean, if you live there, can't you take care of the community that you live in or you're from? You know, but again, in politics, and you know, a good friend of mine, you know, I just hated politics. It's ugly business. Unfortunately, it won't go away. Virginia, anybody have any? I know we try to pick up on your concerns about the tampering with their food.
Well, I think that the tampering and the food stuff could tie in with his water rights, but I think that we need to try to, you know, we've done, somebody had mentioned education yesterday, and I think we've done a pretty good job at Buckleshoot with our kids, but I don't think we've done a good job with the non-Indian community. We set up, you know, different various meetings with the city council, with the King County, whatever they're called, I don't remember what King County Board is called, and with the state, but I don't think that with the general public that we've done enough education. We've done a pretty good job with the school district, but we haven't been able to implement much of the culture and history of the tribe. So I think that's an issue that something we need to take care of too. And with water issues, I think it'd be a good idea. You know, we've had some experience there, but we probably are going to have more.
Thank you.
Our people would say, "Pushki or court, stand up and speak." You know, when we look at all these different things, and the one thing that we can never leave out of it, and we've been doing this a lot, is leaving out our spirituality. And you know, a long time ago within our people, we always had a leader, what they call Pai, who led the people, but beside him was the medicine man. And the medicine man always stood beside him because he was always the one to make sure that the values and the morals were always right there in the front. And today we're losing that. We don't have that spiritual person right beside the leader to make sure, hey, we keep these morals and these values. Teach those people that don't know it. Those are the kind of things that, you know, that we need to bring back. I work with a lot of young people and I always tell them, you know, this is my culture now. This, just like old you people, this is part of our culture now. It's okay, but don't get confused. I tell them, this is a miniature board. This is our spirituality. There's a difference between culture and spirit and spirituality. Don't get them confused. This is part of our culture now. It's not our spirituality, but it's part of our culture, because our culture is always changing. But remember the spirituality part, because that's what keeps us going. And I always try to tell the young people that's what you need to do, because you live in today's world just like we do. And you're going to come across these things. It's okay to use them. It's okay. But don't forget your spiritual part. That's the part that needs to come into these meetings again. Because when we sit and we're in check with our spirituality, we have commonality. And even with those people outside the mainstream, if you see right now on these .coms, these people are trying to find out where they come from. There's billions of dollars spent on that today because they want to know where their roots are, because they're lost. They're lost people and they're trying to find this thing again. Us, we can help them. And when we start having these conversations, they'll see where we're coming from. Because we still have it. That's why you see a lot. Sometimes people cling to Indian people. They want to know, what's your secret? What's your family? Our people. That's our secret. You had that too. But now show them that commonality, that see, where you came from, your people left because of ways where you were treated. Now you're coming here and you're doing the same to us. Show them those kind of things. And that's how we teach them people that what we're talking about, a way of life, they'll have that understanding of it and that compassion that comes along with it. Those are the kind of things that we need to bring back and tell those leaders of white people, shame them. You're going to have to counter somebody when you go up there. You have to tell them those things again because they forgot. They know where their people, why they came here. It wasn't to have destruction. They were coming here because they were looking for freedom. The very thing that we had. So these are the things that are those commonality things, but we have to bring them forward again. And like I said, when we bring that forward, then we start to have this commonality with each other. We know how to stand side by side and stand together. You know, I'm not a young man no more, but I got on the council when I was 19. I've been on there almost 30 years. And I had 2 years where I was off, but the people put me back on. They seen what I was always talking about, because I always telling them, bring our spirituality back into this. So I've been on the council for 30 years. One old man told me one time, one of our elders, he said, you want wisdom? Keep your ears and your eyes open and your mouth shut. And I thought, wow, that's pretty harsh. But now I know what he's talking about. Now I'm at that age where I can start speaking and talking about these things. Because just what he told me, you sit back and you keep your eyes and your ears open, you learn. You'll be able to bring that wisdom forward. You hear it from those people. That's what, again, those are the kind of things that our people always talked about. Teaching us as young people. So when we got older, we knew how to speak. And we knew what we were going to talk about. That's what we need to teach our young people again, is how to do these kind of things. To sit back and listen. Here, pass this wisdom on. Because we all know we're all an old people. We have, great wisdom. And we need to bring all that stuff back and bring it to us. And when we come here to fight, we have our spirituality that's right in front. That's pushing the way for us. Because that's how we've always survived. And, they didn't think we were going to last this long, but we're still here, and we're going to continue to be here. But I'd like to say thank you for the seeing how it was all put together. It was really done well. And congratulations, John. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody hungry? Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, we have the dinner tonight at Thompson's, and I think the people who are driving got the sheet with the direction to those who.
Patricia said there was no address, so I thought you could GPS it, but yeah. And she gave me an address, but that's their mailing address, so I'm not sure if it's the right one. So these are the directions that she gave us. There are 8 people that need a ride. I have your cell phones, and we have a call into Kitty, who's trying to secure the van. So it looks like we might be able to get a van to take everybody as a group for the 8 people that need a ride. If you don't hear from me, you can call Dick, because I'm off in about half an hour. Okay.
I found, so there's an address that.
Oh, you found one?
To the gate, and then,
Okay, great.
so it's 438
438.
Puamamane, I think
Uh-oh.
I'm saying that wrong. Puamamane.
Puamamane. Okay, and then one other housekeeping announcement. Kitty left some posters and calendars in the back for people to take that aren't going to the fish meeting tomorrow, because they're going to have more there. And if you don't get one and you'd like one, leave your business card, or you can give it to her tonight at dinner as well. If you want a calendar, and she'll mail it to you.
The residents, when you get there, there's plenty of parking. They kind of have this whole valley like it is. Large children have their homes in that area and stuff. So it's just a beautiful setting. And so there's plenty of parking, but it's like you're in a cul-de-sac almost, like, homes, and all of a sudden there's a gate and homes are way back there. But it's just a beautiful setting, and so you will enjoy it and have an opportunity to make new friends and everything. So in my cell number, 510-551-6551. If you have questions, then I'll try to get the answer for you if I don't have it. Is there a phone number for them too, the Thompsons? Oh, so the phone number is in there too, so when in doubt, call them when you get kind of close or whatever, you'll be able to sort it out. We just see what kind of guides you are. I was going to call on the gentleman who opened it up for us, Pacific Island, to maybe say something, but also kind of offer a little prayer for us as we conclude this roundtable. As the title indicates, it was really meant to be kind of a strategic thinking session. We're not obviously in a position to say that everything's going to happen, but I certainly appreciate the observers from the different islands here as well. They have their meeting tomorrow here.
Before I begin, I just wanted to kind of give some of my insight, or our insight, as we sat here and with the honor and privilege of being allowed to sit here amongst all of you, from Oklahoma, from the mainland, from Alaska, Mahalo Makako. I just wanted to leave this how do you call it? This aka, or this foresight. And in Maui, it's perpetual for us to always remember these words. Kavama mua, kavama hope. That the future is in the past. And that's what we strive for every day with our Ohana family of Maui, and as well as Ko Hawaii Island, state of Hawaii. So without further ado, mahalo once again. E ho maluia kako e puli kako. Mahalo ke akua, mahalo me kanani ka mako mako ka lani ho ki pa mai mako a pau. E ho olo mai ka mako manao. Ko pu mai ka ia na nei ke iawa. A maula a e me ka makana na o. Being grace, we thank the Heavenly Father for keeping us in your kindness, as well as keeping our thoughts in your divine care. Praise your name each day and the days ahead for your wisdom and your knowledge. We ask you to be with us as we strive for perseverance in staying the course. As kanaka mauli, e keia wahi of this place and of this earth. We ask you to provide us with that inspiration within ourselves, so we can stay the course I think of our kupuna, our ancestors of yesterday, and what they have accomplished then, that we strive for the same. We are saying to end this meeting, this Halavai, with the greatest of these, to impress that idea within ourselves that we need to go forward. We are saying as we leave this place, to allowing each and every one of us that is here, and also to hold dear and hold steadfast on the mana'o, on the ideas that have been shared. E mahalo kia kua. E mahalo i nā kupuna. We ask you to bless the food that has been provided for us. May it nourish our hearts, our minds, and our spirits. Amen.
Lunch outside, I guess there's lunch outside as well, and we'd like to try to take a little photo first if we can in that little patio area, and people can get something to eat, take a little group shot if we have time.